I'm Jayne Mundy, and I taught at the school from 1995 until 2002. I started as a Standard 6 teacher. We arrived in January because we'd come from Seychelles, which is a southern hemisphere calendar, so they finished in December and started their year in January. And so I started Standard 6 because the Standard 6 teacher who started in September had left, and then I filled in for 2 terms, and then I went to PE teacher secondary and primary, and then I went to we went on to head of PE, and then a bit later on head of pastoral. So I gave up my head of PE and I was head of secondary pastoral. So no, we were there for my husband was obviously working as well, and he ended up as secondary head, and my 2 kids both went there. So they both, in fact, Ross was the eldest one, was only the second a lot of students who did IB. So basically we heard of the job because we had 2 friends who were working there, and they said they're desperate for a teacher to teach Standard 6, and not many people could come in January, and so we both went. I think Glenn was he taught geography and PE to start with in secondary, and I'd had Standard 6, so that's how we started. And then we were there for 7 years. So to be honest, the need for a job, because we'd finished our contract in Seychelles, and we were looking for jobs, but because most of the jobs are from September through to June or July, it's very difficult to find a job in January unless you want to keep in and find another Southern Hemisphere school. And most of the international schools were either Northern Hemisphere or worked a Northern Hemisphere timetable. So, to get a job in January for us was quite difficult. And so this came up, and so we went, and we went for a visit, and then we had an interview, and we loved it. We'd come from Seychelles, where you could stand on one in the middle of Seychelles and look both sides, and you'd see both sides. And I remember going up Dedza Mountain with our friends, and we walked to the top of Dedza Mountain, and I just could not believe the space. I mean, it was just incredible. And Juliet was saying, "Oh, look, there's Mozambique over there," and I was going, "What?" It's just, coming from this small island, which we were there for 5 years, to this was absolutely amazing. So I mean, yes, we needed a job, but then once we'd been and visited, then we were caught. The student body at the time of Bishop Mackenzie was basically, I don't know what it is now. There was a lot of local Malawians. There was the Asian Malawian group. I don't know how many of them are still there. There was also the tobacco community group, and then there was basically the embassies and the teachers' children. That nobody sort of came to Bishop Mackenzie because there's no boarding. They'd go to St Andrews if they wanted boarding, so they wouldn't come to Bishop Mackenzie. So basically that was what the student body was made up with. And at the time it was owned by run by the DSB in Blantyre, which had us and I think St Andrews and one of the primary schools down there. So while we were there, it went from that to having the parents run the school, which gave different problems, but it was so. But the actual community, the student body didn't change. There was a good mixture, but most of them were people who lived in Malawi and lived in Lilongwe. There weren't many that came in, as children of people and businesses or anything like that. It was only the embassy and those sort of agencies that sent their children to us. And I suppose that's similar in most of the schools I've worked in, except I would say I worked in Dubai, and that was completely different, because that was mainly, in fact, I think we had very few Emiratis at the school, and the expatriates were forced to go to private schools because they weren't allowed to go to the local schools. So that way you've got most of them expats. But that was a different type of school, because that was run by a company and not the parents. So the company obviously wanted to make money, and so there was good things about that and bad things. You know, as a teacher, it was quite bad because if they wanted to make money, they cut down on your resources, because that's one of the ways they could make money, more money. So, you know, it was BMIS was different in lots of ways. I mean, it was different to start with because it was owned by the DSB, and then we had no control at all. And then when the parents came, it opened it up a lot. And they were the ones that decided that they wanted to go for IB and not for A-levels. So it sort of moved on from there. We did, because I don't know, the DSB were in Blantyre, and I mean, you know, 4 hours in a car, or however many hours in a car away, and very distant from us. And yet the parents would, you know, you could if you had a problem, the school had a problem, they could actually go to the parents, and the parents wanted the school to succeed, and so therefore it moved on from there. So it was a much better relationship, much better. I mean, it had its downsides, of course, because as most parents, as you probably know, the board was made up of parents, and each parent wanted the class with their child in, or the year with their child. You know, there was that, you had to be careful there. But other than that, it did work better than the DSB. My memorable achievement, I think, was when we got the new swimming pool, because when I went there was just have they still got the small pool? There was a small pool, yeah, it was just a small pool. And so it was really difficult to teach competitively, because it wasn't even it's not even a 25-meter pool. I mean, it's for secondary kids, you know, some of them about 8 or 9 strokes and they're at the end, you know, it wasn't. So, but then when we got the new pool, we decided as a PE department that we were going to try and run a Malawi-wide swimming gala competition, and we did that. And so we had all the schools from Blantyre, we had Kamuzu Academy, the whole of Malawi came to this swimming gala, and it worked. It was really, we did really well, and we wanted to show it off, really, I suppose, because we were so used to having the horrible small pool, and we got blocks and everything, you know, like we'd never known anything. The kids had never known anything like it, you know. It was just amazing. So I think that was, and I think the trips to Chimani that was a good achievement, because we went even when it all sort of fell apart, you know, and they were chucking out all the white people were coming over to us, white Zimbabweans, and we took a trip down then, and that was probably a bit dangerous, but we drove the school bus down with Robertson in the bus. So that was we got there and they had a good time, and we came back and nobody got anything, you know, nothing happened. So that was good. When Mr. Mugabe, bless him, decided that he was going to give the farms to Zimbabweans, and that all the white Zimbabweans had to not leave, but they were forced out off their farms, and so it was quite a big exodus of white Zimbabweans, and we got quite a few of them at school, but the whole situation was not very good. You know, it was not. It could have been a bit violent, but it was fine. It's even sorted itself out now. But how that bus kept going for so long, I really don't. I mean, it went on and on and on. We kept, as a PE department, we wanted a new bus, because we did. Being in Lilongwe, the only school we could pay was the other school in Lilongwe, which was I can't remember what its name was. The other secondary school in the small one. Basically an Asian. It was run by the Asian community, I think. So we had to go down to either to Kamuzu Academy or to St Andrews, because they were the only other 2 secondary schools there. So we needed the bus a lot, and it broke down a lot. I remember we were going through Mozambique. This is when we were going down to Chimanimani, and there wasn't a lot of activity there, but the bus got a puncture and it went bang, like it's in the middle of the road, and the whole bus, all of the kids were going, "Wow, we're going to be shot at! We're being shot, miss!" No. Robertson got out, and it was just a puncture. But that was a sort of, you know, atmosphere. It was good. It was good. We enjoyed it. We tried hard to upgrade the field and all of the facilities, because they were pretty bad. the indoor facilities were awful in that it was just a hall. I mean, I don't know what facilities they have now. Now the hall was okay to start with, but then when they opened a drama department and they had a stage, if it was wet, I used to hate taking kids into a classroom. If it's wet, it's PE, and you need to be doing something active. And so there was always, we wanted a new or our own indoor sports hall. But I don't know whether they got that now. I don't know. And the, you know, like things like the tennis courts were dreadful. They had that horrible like yellow, sort of red mud on them. And I think that we did get those tarmacked eventually. And the field was the field really. It was really difficult. But I think we started. Then we made all of the kids do IGCSE PE. That was a start because we needed. We made all of them do it because the theory, the PE theory was good for general first aid and, you know, just knowing about your body and how it works and everything else. And so, you know, we thought that would be a skill that they could take into their lives, really, future lives. And then what we did was those that really struggled with the practical, we did the mocks in January, and those that were struggling with the practical, we said they could drop it, you know, they didn't have to do the actual exam. But that was the next stage. And then when we were doing then I was also CAS coordinator as well when we started the IB. So we were trying to push the sports part of that and getting the kids to then coach the older kids to coach the younger kids and things like that. So we started doing that, and, you know, just trying to get it a bit more, I don't know, it was difficult to work with the facilities that we got, but we tried our best to sort of, you know, we built there was an outdoor sand volleyball court once. I don't know if that's probably gone, but, you know, then stuff like that, just so kids could, maybe just at break time, just, you know, they could just pick up a volleyball and, you know, start playing. So to encourage them to sort of to be more active, because some of them weren't very active at all. But that's the same for all kids. I mean, all the kids I've taught with classes, you know, you always get the ones that are really, really keen and going, and then you get the other ones that really don't want to do anything. They don't want to move really. So, but I must say, we as a PE department, we try to make it fun, because I think if you try to get too serious with these kids and, you know, then but if you made it fun and you made a fool of yourself sometimes, and, you know, just it relaxed the ones that were, because people get really tense about it sometimes, and, you know, sometimes just because they have to wear what they have to wear to do it, you know, they're conscious of their bodies, and, you know, especially as they become teenagers. And so we tried to have a sort of a strict but relaxed, strict and relaxed. I mean, they knew the boundaries, but, you know, they knew that they could come to us if there was a problem or anything like that. So, I mean, I think your question is saying, facility-wise, we needed to upgrade them really, and try and get some. We were trying to get people in to come and coach them, you know, or train them to be coaches, you know, this sort of stuff. Try to get that going, but by the time I left, we haven't really got that far. We just got the facility. We were a bit stuck really, because the IB had just started. A lot of money went into the actual IB. Actually, the actual exam, because that's an expensive exam, and so I suppose if I'd stayed on longer, we could have probably, you know, once it had evened out a bit, we could have probably got a bit more money out of them to try and get some more facilities. But that's about it. I am going to tell you this one, right? So my first primary swimming gala, right? Now we're in a small pool now, and it's Saturday morning, and at the time there was no male PE teacher, so there was Sarah was the other PE teacher, and so we did it between us, and it all went off really well. But I don't know what their swimming galas are like now, but at the time, we'd start them about 8, and at about 7:30, the parents would arrive with their cold boxes full of alcohol and wine and all sorts, and so basically they'd start drinking. And so we got to the end of the swimming gala. And yes, we had a few parents going, "Oh, he touched with one hand and not 2 hands." I mean, they were really competitive. And this is like 7-year-olds, you know, we go, "Yes, no, he didn't, you know, we've got to." Anyway, So it gets to the end of it, you know, Sarah and I, that's a relief. We have to have the mothers and the fathers race now. Oh my goodness. So bearing in mind these parents have been drinking since 7:30, all right? So the first one was a mother's race, and then a lot of them hadn't bought swimming costumes, although they knew that this was a tradition. I don't know if it still is, but it's a tradition. So they hadn't bought swimming costumes. So by this time, some of them were just going, oh, that's why. They took their tops off and they were just went in their bra and pants. And they dived, this group dived into the pool, and they got at the end. And at the end, some of them had white pants and white bras on. So when they got out of the pool, they went completely see-through. And Sarah and I was thinking, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? So luckily, somebody rushed up with towels and covered them up. And then when the men got in, they were in the same situation, no swimming costumes or anything. So they just took their trousers down and swam in their boxers. So, but then when they dived in, because boxers aren't particularly tight, so we had about 3 bare bums just going down. It was like, oh my God, I thought this had gone so well, and now it's just like fallen, it's collapsed in a heap. But that was very memorable. And the next time we did one, we said, please bring your costumes if you want to participate in the parents' race at the end, because it was just, it was all. And I suppose another one was, we did the boyfriend, and that was a really good, and the school discos. We started school discos as well, because well, you know, you lived in a long way. There's not much for, I mean, I don't know what there is now. There's not much for kids to do, not teenage kids to do in a long way, apart from go to their friends' houses, really, and that's what they used to do. So back once a month we had a school disco, and that was, and a lot of the kids. The only thing we had was that we had to stay until the kids had been picked up, and so some parents were quite glad to get rid of their kids in the evening and weren't so happy to come and collect them afterwards. And so sometimes we'd be an hour or something after the disco finished, and the kids were still there. So I was a bit mean, really. So what we did in the end, because staff we lived on campus at the time, so it wasn't too bad for us. But even so, it was a Friday or a Saturday night, and you're sort of like 11 o'clock, and you're still waiting for one parent to turn up. Oh, he's coming, Miss, he's coming. Yeah. Anyway, so what we did was, if you were late, if your parents had picked you up late, although I know it's not your fault, but we had a list on the Monday morning of all the kids who were late, and they were not allowed to the next disco. Oh, that stopped straight away. That was the first one. The next disco, we had everybody gone by. It was brilliant. But it was just, what they did was, the kids, they went and moved outside and waited outside the gate then. So in effect, that wasn't our responsibility. It wasn't particularly, it probably was safe. They were all in a big gang, but you know, if there's one there, then it would probably be there. But their parents knew that they were going to get thrown out, basically, you know. So it was, but it worked, and they were good. They were really good. I was just trying to think of something else. Oh, you wouldn't want to know. We had some really good staff parties. Because the staff as well, you know, there wasn't much to do in Longwy socially, and so you made your own entertainment. You know, we'd have a Christmas party in July, and we all had to put Santa. I mean, just things that, you know, and everybody was in the same situation. Everybody was sort of not nowhere to go. There was an Italian that opened up, which is still open, I think. But that was the first one, and that was amazing. You know, everybody thought, whoa, but there wasn't much to do. The curry house over in Capital City we used to go to, but there's not much around really. The Chinese, but that's closed, I think, now, apparently. But you know, lots of, I mean, half of me thinks, oh, I'd really like to go back and just to visit, but then the other half thinks, well, I'd rather keep the memories I've got now rather than, you know, because some of the stuff's going to be, it's all going to be completely different. So the school looks amazing though, compared to while we were there. Absolutely amazing, really good. It's difficult because I did IGCSE PE, and I did IGCSE geography, and then I did CAS, which I suppose was the PE part of, and then I did IB geography. But I always thought that I mean, I know that they don't do that, but I always thought the IGCSE was a really good starter for the IB, because it was quite a difficult exam compared to the GCSE. It was harder than GCSE. And for international kids, it had that international part of it. You know, the English had different, you know, books, literature, and the geography was world geography rather than just UK geography. So I think that, I know I always argue, we've had loads of arguments. So when we were there, we did IGCSE up to IB and then IB onwards, and that worked very well. And then they did the primary, I don't know what the primary, the national curriculum, I think, British national curriculum primary, and it worked well. But there's arguments for and against that, and I've argued. I mean, I think that if you're setting students exams, which you still are, and they still are, then you need to give them practice and exams before they get actually up to the IB level. So, you know, the IGCSE got them in the right frame of mind for taking an exam. Whereas if they're doing a project, yes, it's great investigation, I love all that, but then to be thrown into an IB program whereby you've got to have an exam and then you've got all these, is probably a bigger gap than some of them people could cope with. You know, they knew what an exam was, and so they knew that they could or couldn't do it. But you know, I think it's difficult for students who come through the whole IB system. I mean, some of them very successful, I know they are, but in my opinion, it's easier to give them a bit of practice of doing an exam before you give them their final exam, which often is going to make them, whether they go to university or don't go to university, you know, it's a big exam, isn't it? So, but that's just how it was, just an opinion and stuff. Congratulations for the 80 years. I'm forgetting that far. And also, you know, if any, I'd like to send my sort of love to everybody that can remember me. And I'm sorry for the cross country. I think being a family in Bishop Mackenzie was really good for my kids, both of them. They both went through. Ryan left when he was just before he started his IGCSE, because we'd been there 7 years, and we knew that we'd never take one of our children out halfway through a course. So if we'd stayed from year 9, we'd have to stay to the end of the year 11, and that would have been 9 years, and that would have been. I think the longer you stay in a school, sometimes it's the harder it is to get a job somewhere else, because people just think you haven't had a lot of experience. But Ross went on and did his IB there, and it was really good for the family. They developed in ways that they wouldn't have done if we'd been in the UK, but it was a bit of a culture shock for them to go back, I think, both of them, in some ways, because they were not used to living in a society, in such a big society. I mean, Ross went back to Sussex, and Brighton's huge. I mean, you know, compared to Lilongwe, I mean, you know, and there was so much to do, and so for us it was a good time. We had, and they could explore, like we went on safaris, and you know, so for us as a family it was perfect, absolutely perfect. And when we left, I mean, when we went on to Hanoi, and Ryan was our youngest. We were the worst parents in the world for about 4 weeks until he found his feet there. I think as a parent working in an international school, it's very difficult the older your children get, the harder it is for them to move. You know, it's easy for you to get a job for 2 years and a job for 2 years and a job, but it's hard for them, especially as, you know, when they're going through the teenage years, to make new friends and to start again, really. But I mean, they're all both still in contact with lots of people that they've met in Malawi. I mean, lots and lots. So it was good. It was a good place. So basically, we went on from Malawi. We went to Hanoi, and we were there for 4 years, and then we came to Spain for 4 years, and we worked here. And then after that, we went. Glenn got a job as a principal at a school in Libya, in Tripoli. So we went there, and we were there when Gaddafi all of that came up. So we were there then. So we were evacuated from there. But he worked for this company called GEMS, who are based in Dubai. And so when when we came back here, they said they wanted to keep him on, but he'd have to come to Dubai. So then we moved to Dubai for 4 years. But by this time, both kids were at university, so it was just us. And then we 4 years in Dubai. And then we got a job in Penang in Malaysia for 4 years. So we were there. And then we decided that we'd had enough. And we bought, when we were working in Spain, we bought a house here. So we left Penang in 2018 and come back, and we've sort of semi-retired. I still do geography marking for Cambridge. So I mark the exam, the GCSE papers. And we've just, but to be honest, I don't know how we had time to go to work. We just, because we're still traveling. We went to New York, to places that we hadn't been to before. And we can travel out of school holidays. You don't realise. And when you've been a teacher all your life, that every time you go on holiday, the flight prices are treble. And we've been going on holidays in October, going, where are all these people? Why is the airport not full? Because we'd have Christmas and summer normally. So we basically retired, semi-retired for me. We do bits and pieces, but not. And I'm still into sport. I mean, we go to the gym and we run, and so we're still active. We haven't. So we're in good life, actually. It's really nice.